Hi, now we are going to talk about the reduce function in a Python. Right? So again, reduce function has been developed in a Python to reduce the code writing. And again, we'll understand how the reduce function work. But before that, let's talk about the building blocks. So let's understand how to find a maximum and the minimum in the list. Here we know that. So consider that this is the list we have. In this list, we have the 5 element. Let's run this list value. And then one way we can solve this is using for loop, right? So here we can use the lambda function. Like here we are saying that if, so here we are saying we are taking 2 element A and the B, right? And then here we are saying that if A is greater than B, then it will return A, otherwise it will return B. So this function will find you the maximum of 2 element. So here we have built the function, we have defined the function to find the maximum of the 2 element. Now we are defining the function max sequence, which will return the maximum in a sequence. So this function takes the sequence as an argument. Now the first element of the sequence we have we have set as a result. So the first element of the sequence is the result. And then we are saying that for x in the sequence, so again, now we are taking the like from the second element of the sequence, and now we are passing this result and the second element. So basically we are passing the first and the second element in the max function that we had defined above, right? And trying to get the output. Whatever the output is, we are storing that in a result. So now our result is the one of the element, and again we'll consider, now again we'll check that element with the second element of this loop, and then it will keep running until this entire sequence or this iterable does not complete, and then at the last it will give you the result output. So this is the function which will give you the maximum of the sequence data, and now we can use this function, right? We are passing the L as an argument, and then this will give you the 10 as value, right? Now to calculate the maximum minimum, we just need to flip this greater than sign, right, with the less than sign. So again, let's rewrite the function. This time we are naming this function as min, and again the new function has been developed called min sequence, which take the sequence and a function. So function is default over here. We are passing, we do not have to pass from here and over here as well. So now we are using a min function to get the minimum of the output, and let's try to print the value and the minimum value. We could also write a more generic function, like here we have written this function called reduce, which take the function and the sequence, right? And again the same code is being repeating. Instead of function we have replaced this. So here we had used min and the max, but now we are replacing this the more generic name fn, and everything is same over here, right? So now we can pass these two function over here. So in the reduce function we are passing max and L, which will give you the maximum of the sequence. Again this will give you the minimum of the sequence, right? So now as we know that how the code has been being concised, right? Now we can even use this reduce function with the lambda function. Instead of passing this function argument, we can define the function over here, right? Here we are defining the lambda function, which gives you the maximum value, right? And here we are defining the lambda function, which checks the or return the minimum value, right? Now using the same approach, we can even add all the sequence element. So here the list is this. So instead of finding the maximum and the minimum, here we are what trying to, so here we are trying to do is we are taking the 2 element and then we are adding these together, right? So here we have added all the list elements, right? But for this task, that for the reduce task, here we have implemented the reduce function, but you do not have to implement this function. This Python provide this reduce function from the functool modules. You just need to import from the functools, and that's it, right? And now let's try to use this reduce function, which works similar to what we had defined earlier. So again, here we are passing the function. So first as an argument, and the second argument we are passing the sequence data 10. So this will give you the maximum of the element, this will give you the minimum of the element, and this will do the addition of the value. Again, finding minimum and the maximum is very common. You can even try this with the max and the min function. You do not have to go through that. But again, this is good to know that you have this kind of functionality over here. We can use max and min. We can even do the sum to add all the element. Right. Now let's talk about the any and the all method. Now Python also have these two built-in functions, any and all. So any function will return true if any of the values inside a iterable is true, and so as opposite to all. So all will return you true if all the element inside a sequence is true. Like over here, we have this sequence data L012, where 0 is false, 1 is true, 2 is true, and now we are using the any function because like here, so any function will just try to check if any one of the value are true. So we know that we have the two element as true, so it will give you true. Now here we have this, all the values are 0, all the values are false, so we'll get false over here. Again, as an all math, as an all function, right? If all the elements are true, then it will return true, otherwise it will give you false. Here it will give you false, right? And now here we're trying to check whether this, here because the 0 was false, right? So we are getting false, and here all the elements are true, we are getting true over here. Now we can even implement this all and even all and any function. It's very easy to implement. We just need to use the OR operator during any and AND operator during all. So here we are using this reduce function, and then in the lambda function we are saying that we are passing two value a and the b, and then we are saying that whether this boolean of a or b is true or not, and that's it. We have implemented the any function, right? And here we have implemented the all function. Instead of in or, we are using and, right? Now we can even do the product of two element of the iterable. For that, let's start with the multiply function. So here we have defined the function called mult, which takes two argument and do the multiplication of those two argument. Take the product of these two element. Let's run this. Now here we have this list, and now we are using this multiplication function which takes two element, and then we are passing this to a reduce function. This will take, like this will do is 2 into 3, and then so the result will be 6, and 6 into 4, the result will be 24, right? And here is the explanation that I had extra provided. You can, instead of that, instead of defining the separate function, you can even use the lambda function over here. This lambda function takes two arguments similar to this mult and does a into b, right? Now there are certain instances where this reduce function can get uh, can result in the error, especially if you have the empty list or like empty sequence, right? Or the sequence with the length 0 or the boolean false. So there are many interpretation for that. So here let's take the L as 1, 2, 3. We are using lambda function which takes two element, does the multiplication of those two, again the same output. Now here we are trying with L as an empty. What happens? We'll get 0 because this will not work. There is no element over here. So it is trying to call the function which will not work. We can fix this by providing a default value. Here in the reduce function, 1 is the default value we are having. So if there is an error or if the sequence data is empty, it will return with the default value. Here we have this, right? So this is it, all about reducing the function. So we have discussed a lot more function over here, and thank you very much.